Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in day 17 of AWS series, today we are going to see how we can create S3 bucket in AWS. So let me go to my AWS console. So I'll go to this bucket type in a while. Let me go to my EC2 console, sorry, AWS console, and here you can see the S3 bucket. If you can't see in console homepage, you can simply search here S3 and you will get a S3 bucket. So let me go and create a S3 bucket here. So let me click on create bucket, and here you can see we are getting two options: bucket type, general purpose and directory. So now let me go back to my PPT and explain what these two are and which one we should use. So basically the general purpose bucket is a flat bucket and it's a most commonly used bucket. And here if you are using this general purpose bucket, in that case you will get the benefit of all the availability zone. But if you are using a directory bucket, so it is basically similar to a folder structure. The name itself suggests the directory. So basically you are going to store your files under a particular directory structure, so traditional file system basically. So this is the main difference between two, and AWS recommended always use a general purpose bucket, but if you have a requirement, in that case definitely you have to go with directory buckets. So here the hierarchy will be a traditional file system, like we have single folder, then under that we have another folder, then we have another file. So like that basically you create. In general purpose also you have the ability to create a folder as well. And if I'll talk about availability zones, so in general purpose you will get multiple availability zone, but in directory bucket you will have single availability zone, which is express one zone. And if I talk about storage classes, so I have not explained the storage classes, but the storage classes help us to analyze the cost of our S3 services. So we will cover storage classes in another video, but for now, just understand the general purpose bucket support all kind of storage classes, but the directory bucket only support S3 express one zone only. If we talk about performance, so standard S3 performance, and here it is optimized for low latency as and fast output operations. So this generally we use like AI and ML applications. Use cases: general purpose storage like your database backup, application logs, and or so on. So and directory backup generally we use for high performance data processing, like you are using Hadoop, or if you are using any AI model. In that case you should go with a directory bucket. Life cycle and event supports, so here it's a full support on general purpose, but if you are using a directory bucket then limited support. So we will cover also this life cycle and event, what all these things in another video, in a separate video, in a detailed manner. Just for understand, I just want to give you a quick difference between general purpose bucket and directory bucket and which one you should use. So if I'll go to my console back, so here you can see it is recommended for most use cases and access patterns, and directory bucket is recommended for low latency use cases. So based on your requirement you have to always choose a bucket type, because once you create a bucket with these bucket types you cannot change it later, so you have to keep in mind. So I am going with a general purpose one, and this name should be globally unique. So let me give, for example, if I give a simple name here called demo, and let me just leave all these things for now. And if I'll click on create bucket, so you can see I'll get a warning: bucket with the same username already exists. So this bucket name should be unique across all the AWS account. It's not about the your AWS account. It's across the globe. The account name should be unique. So let me insert some random numbers here. Oh, okay. Let me give, and now copy settings from existing bucket. For example, if you have already bucket which you have created previously and you want a same settings to be applied on the newly created bucket, in that case you can select the existing bucket, but in our case we don't have any. Now come to the object ownership. So again here we are seeing two options, ACL disabled and ACL enabled. So let's understand these two. So let me go to my presentation. So basically what is object ownership? So object ownerships determine who owns and who control access to objects uploaded to an S3 bucket, especially when multiple AWS accounts are involved. So the ownership basically help us, okay, who owns this particular object and who control this particular access, like who can access what. So this is what we are going to control as part of access control list. So the two options here we have ACL disabled, which is you can see recommended by AWS, and another we have ACL enabled. So now let's see a difference between these two options here. So if we are going with ACL disabled, it means the access control list are completely disabled. The bucket owner always owns every object, no matter who uploads it. What does it mean? Basically, suppose we have 4 users and each user is going to upload their own files. Then the ownership will remain with the AWS account owner. AWS account owner or the bucket owner who has created the bucket. And here you can control the access using the IAM policy, like identity and access management. So you can define, okay, which user can access what resources inside the S3 bucket. Another option we have ACL enabled. This is basically in short form called object writers owns object. Matlab, if I am going to upload a object in S3 bucket, then I am going to the owner of that particular object. So the uploader becomes the object owner unless overridden. So by default, I'll be the owner if I'm uploading the object in S3 unless it is overridden by someone else. And you can set fine-grained access at object level, like who can read or who can write. So all those things you can set up. So as per recommendation by AWS, we are going with a default option which is ACL disabled. So we can utilize a feature called identity and access management. Another option you can see here, block public access settings for this bucket. So by default, when we create a S3 bucket, all the public access will be disabled by default. Unless if it is required, you can go and uncheck this box and you can choose the option which one is suits on you. So suppose block public access to buckets and objects granted through new access control list. Then we have another option, block public access to buckets and objects granted through any access control list, like new access control list or any. Then we have another two options. So for this demonstration, so if you can see here, as soon as I have unchecked this option, we are getting here a warning. Turning off block all public access might result in the bucket and the object becoming public. So this is the kind of security breach. So it is always recommended to just block all the public access unless it is not required. So let me tick this box, block all the public access. Then we have bucket versioning. So this is something similar to a version control system like Git and all. So we will cover this versioning part in a separate video. Just for now, just want to give a quick overview what is bucket versioning. So it is similar to a source control versioning systems. Then here we have a tags. If you want to give a tag any of for this particular bucket, you can give, for example, let me give this is name, and I will give this bucket for dev environment. And now it comes to encryption part. So server side encryption is automatically applied to new object stored in the bucket. So these three encryption types we will get in terms of security of our data which we are going to store in S3 bucket. So first one we have server side encryption with Amazon S3 managed key. So every this encryption, the whatever the data you are going to store on S3, for that the encryption is completely managed by AWS. You don't need to worry anything. If you are going with server side encryption, then you have to create a customer managed or custom managed key basically. Sorry. And here we have another dual layer server side encryptions with AWS key management service. So if you are using these tools, then you have to manage the encryption key. But if you are going with server side encryption, you don't need to manage any key. Then we have a bucket key. So using a S3 bucket key for SSE KMS. So these are this option is basically applicable for these two encryption type if we are going. So let me disable it because we don't need it for this demo. Now if I'll go to advanced settings, so here we have another option called object lock. So what it is basically, so suppose if I'm going to upload any files on S3 and I want only user can read that particular file, they cannot write it. So for that purpose we can select or we can use object lock feature here. So by default I'm going with this disable because like you can enable or disable, again it's your requirement, but I'm going with this I'm going to disable it. So now let me hit on create bucket. Okay, so our demo 095801 bucket has been created in AWS region because we are on this United States region. But this bucket name, as I told you, it should be unique across all the AWS accounts. So now let me go to demo 095801 bucket, and here we don't have any object. So let me upload any one of the file here. So I'll simply go to upload option, and here I will click on add files. So let me go to downloads and let me select any text file. Okay, let me go with dash.html file. So you can see this is a metadata. If you can see the name, folder, we don't have any folders, type and size. So this is the metadata. If I'll go back here in my PPT. So what is metadata in Amazon S3? So metadata in S3 refer to an extra information attached to each object or file stored in a bucket. So as I uploaded this my test.html file, we can see we are getting that okay, the type is test/html and the size. This is the metadata basically for our object which we are going to upload. So let me go back to my slide. So there are basically two types of metadata: system defined metadata. These are automatically added by S3 when an object is uploaded. So this is the default, oh sorry, what was system defined. So this is the system defined metadata which is automatically added by AWS. If you want to create another type which is user defined metadata, so for that you have to go to properties, and here in last you can see a metadata which is optional. If you want, you can add. So for example, system defined, if you want to create any custom, so you can go with that also, content type and all. And if you want user defined, just select here user defined, and in user defined these values, or I would say the prefix, will remain same. This would be in this format. Here you can give any name like environment and the value, for example dev. So like that you can add a user defined metadata as well for your object. So let me remove it because we don't need it, and let me upload it. So the test.html file has been created successfully. Let me close this. So you can see in a demo bucket we have a file test.html. So let me open this file. So this particular object will have a lot of properties. So you can see bucket properties, versioning we have not discussed. We will discuss in another next video basically. Then we have a storage class. So all these things we are going to discuss in a separate video. In this video, I just want to give you heads up how we can create S3 service, S3 bucket, and what all the options we will get when we are going to create a S3 bucket. So you can see each object will have their own properties and versions as well. So versions is we are not getting because we have not enabled a versioning. So let me go to properties. If I try to open this file, so each object, one more thing I missed here, so each object will have their own URL. If I'll open here, so welcome to the test virtual machine. So this is the HTML page we have uploaded. So we can host a static website as well on S3 bucket. So that also we will see in a demonstration, but it is similar to the file, like I have updated this test.html file. So this, from this particular URL, we can access our HTML or static websites as well. So okay, so I hope it's clear how we can create S3 bucket and what all the options we will get during the creation of S3 buckets. So that's all for today. See you in next video. Thank you so much.